Hi guys, how are you doing? So welcome to the channel. If you're new here, if you are new, please hit the like button and subscribe button. I'd really appreciate that. So I came upon this video by Joey's Corner, the dark truth about the BBC. And if you've seen my content on this channel, you know that my disdain for the British Bastards Corporation, as I like to call it, never dwindles, never goes away, because with each new article that comes out, each new scandal that comes out, it's shocking, but not surprising anymore. Anyway, this video is a detailed account of all the scams all of the scandals that the corporation has been under. And if you're at Joey's Corner, do give this video a like and subscribe as well. Anyway.
It's Saturday, January the 1st, the year 2000.
9/11 would become a date to remember.
Reports are just coming in of an explosion at Liverpool Street Station here in London.
All of London's transport is currently disabled.
It's being reported Michael Jackson has died.
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
25 years ago, the BBC was labelled as the golden standard for trust. It was seen as neutral and balanced, the sort of station that you could go to for the news and leave with a clear view of what had happened, rather than how you should feel about what happened. 25 years ago, the BBC would be a fixture of my household on Christmas Day, where we would sit and watch classics like The Office, Only Fools and Horses, all shows that would now need to be completely restricted to even have a chance of making.
Okay, first, the news. They are good at the news, but I'm referring to years ago. Now, the news is biased towards the left. It's not impartial anymore. It was at one point. But I would go elsewhere for my news. Sky News, even the internet now, you can get any sort of article without a license requirement. As for the shows that we all grew up with and loved, I think there will be a need to re-script, because people these days are far more sensitive and they will complain. Because I watched Only Fools and Horses, Kevin and Perry, and Little Britain, which, you know, I still find hilarious to this day, even though it's un-PC to say that. But these shows at the time were fantastic. My only sort of love for the BBC was one show, that was Holby City, and that was scrapped 3.5 years ago. It did better in views than EastEnders did, and yet EastEnders got a new set, which didn't make any sense. It cost licence fee payers £86 million for this new set for a dwindling soap, which didn't make sense to me. But that's the BBC for you. They will protect the shows that they want to protect, the beloved ones that were once viewed by millions in the UK. But nevertheless, despite my disdain for the company, they did make good news, informative news, and shows that we all loved growing up.
Making it onto the BBC. And no, I'm not here to moan about that today. The world is changing, not as quickly as the powers that be would like it to, but society has changed a lot in the last 25 years. I've got quite a dark sense of humour, and I'm definitely not easily offended, and even I would admit that there are certain scenes that are now dated.
Yeah,
there are certain
shows now are seen as racist, sexist, misogynistic, that sort of jazz. Whereas when we watched them when we were younger, it was hilarious, it was funny. I think as the last 15 years have just gone by so quickly, but the last 15 years, things have changed. People's views have changed. People's sort of the way they talk, the way they say things is different. You know, you can't say certain things that you could say 15 years ago now without being harassed publicly or online. But Little Britain is one of those shows where I just found absolutely hilarious. There is a racist undertone in that show, but back then, edgy humour was a thing. You could say these sort of things, and BBC wouldn't get many complaints. Today, that's a different world now we're living in.
Scenes, or a scene I can think of, in The Office and in Only Fools and Horses that even I wouldn't want on TV today. But times were different, and I'm not going to rewrite history and say that they weren't phenomenal shows produced by the BBC, and that was something that they did on a regular occasion when I was growing up. But that's now all changed. And I noted how society has too, but one thing that I don't feel has changed in the past 25 years are core values, morals, honesty, integrity, and neutralism. And in my opinion, in 2026, they are values that are completely void at the BBC. But a lot of channels don't have those sort of values. So why am I making a point here about the BBC? Well, the BBC are asking people to pay around £180 a year for a TV license, and the people that don't pay can and have been criminally prosecuted. Now
that's only because an inspector is keeping the door and they've let the person in to see their equipment, or they've been stood at the door and they've had their words mixed around, because that's what they're trained to do. They're trying to get your caught out, as it were. Like I say, I've always said that if you ever get anyone at your door, whether it's selling a vacuum cleaner that you don't want, just say no thank you and close the door. They'll turn it off and find easier prey. That's how they operate. But you know, if you've seen my videos on this channel, you know that I haven't paid the license fee in 4 years, and I've saved a lot of money in the process. I don't require a license. I don't watch anything live or use iPlayer. And I prefer it that way. I can watch whatever I want to watch at any time, rather than be stuck by a schedule. You know, oh, we must go to the TV for this time of the night to watch this programme. That is old-fashioned. That is very old-fashioned. People aren't wanting to do that now. They want to watch content that suits them, whether it's kids, adults. You know, people aren't bound by a schedule anymore. Just where things are now.
Me, I'm crazy, but I think that's crazy. Why on earth should a household have to pay £180 a year if you don't even watch the BBC?
Exactly. The TV license should be optional for everyone, and it is to a certain extent. But the BBC, they insist on harassing people at their doors and sending these shitty letters that we all get. I get one. And sending shitty letters to our doors with the sort of delusional bullshit that we have to pay, or we get fined or taken to court. It happens, but if you don't talk to them at the door, you ignore the letters, you're fine. You're fine. And I would say as well, don't access iPlayer, because they do have the records to correlate the households that don't pay the license fee and iPlayer logins. Not worth the risk. This is why when I first moved into this flat 4 years ago, I deleted my iPlayer account, and yet I got a letter in the post saying that I'm accessing iPlayer, which was total bullshit, and just their way of spinning their web of lies, essentially. That's what they do. That's their organisation. That's their mindset, is to con people into giving them their money. That's all they want, is money.
Check the figures, check the numbers. A lot of people don't watch the BBC anymore. So if you're someone that watches a few of the streaming apps, a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of YouTube, occasionally sticks on the odd bit of Sky Sports to watch a bit of football, do I believe that you...
Well, you can't watch anything live, so you can't watch Sky Sports live. You can watch snippets of videos on YouTube, for example. So that bit there about watching sport, you can't watch any sport live. You can't.
You should be giving your hard-earned cash to the BBC, an organisation that have just had to let go of Scott Mills, someone who was reported to them after an investigation for sexual assault 8 whole years ago, and they've only just got round to doing it. And they'll...
Yeah, Scott Mills. I made a video about that actually recently, and I got a lot of bad comments saying, you know, that this guy was put in the clear. You know, he was proven innocent, blah, blah, blah. But my point was that this is just a long line of people who worked for the company who've been involved in sort of scandalous, deviant sexual behaviour. And it continues. Even Tim Davies said before he resigned that there's more to come, which I thought was scathing. If you're the head of a company, it is your job to change the culture to prevent this sort of thing happening again.
Be people that will say, oh no, well, he was cleared and that's why the BBC kept him on. No, he was under investigation for 2 years for serious offences while the BBC continued to pay it. And he's only under investigation, nothing's been proven yet, so I'm not making any allegations here. But there is a pattern, isn't there? Because we all remember another BBC personality that was also under investigation, the BBC also knew about and also continued to pay. The patterns are patterning up here, aren't they? And although historically the BBC...
Yeah, so they knew about Hugh Edwards' sordid details, and yet they kept him on, they paid him still, but then when it came to light and they sacked him, they demanded his money back, which I thought was ridiculous. How do you pay someone knowing that they have all this stuff going on? Rather than just sack him, they kept him on and still paid him, but they sacked him anyway and then demanded the money back, which doesn't make any sense.
So you can kind of get away with the Savile thing to a certain degree. We all suspect the worst there, but at the same time it's hard to prove the BBC of any wrongdoing, and therefore you can't really outright accuse them of anything. And since the Jimmy Savile revelations, I'd be expecting a broadcaster to be watertight on all matters kiddie fiddlers, but they haven't been, have they? Or just alleged offenders in general. People were complaining to the BBC about Tim Westwood's behaviour for about a decade before anything ever happened. Look, let's just call it for what it is. From allegations to convictions to everything in between. The BBC's handling of these predators and monsters of society, to be honest, has been negligent at best, and at worst, I think serious conversations need to be had. In fact, I think that people need to be held accountable. And much like the rest of the UK and everyone that I interact with, double standards are something that really do get to me. And I often do have to ask myself the question, who is...
I think there is a privilege involved if you're on TV and you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar, as it were. You are let go with a slap on your wrist, whereas everyday normal working people would be arrested, jailed and taken to court. It just seems to be a double standard that I don't fully understand or comprehend, but, and of course these guys are all rich and they can afford to bail themselves out, or pay those people off in terms of bribes, this is where you have the barrier between the rich and the poor. The rich get away with everything almost, and the poor are always paying the price.
is it that decides right from wrong? Because I felt it was wrong when Martin Bashir forged documents to suggest that Princess Diana was being spied on by those around her, or when he allegedly told her that the prince had gotten the children's nanny / carer pregnant and that they had to get rid of the baby. Scummy behaviour from Martin Bashir, all in order to be able to obtain an interview that he knows he probably wouldn't have got had it have not been for his deceit. And how did the BBC react?
So yeah, I mean, Philip Schofield got some sort of talk thing after his affair with this lad. These guys get to say, get to talk themselves out of what happened, because these shows offer them money to have their say. And again, I go over the sort of the rich and poor divide. Those who are poor are thrown to jail and taken to court, and the evidence that they get on these guys is enough to convict. Whereas if you're a TV personality and you get to have a show and explain why you did what you did, and that's that. There's no other punishment involved.
How you'd expect, they didn't really react. So that's alright, I suppose, no punishment. But I'll tell you who did get punishments. In 2023, 40-odd thousand people, all because they weren't paying their TV licence. Some of these people received fines.
Exactly. So again, if you don't pay a licence fee and you get someone at your door saying, "Hi, I'm from TV licensing," just say, "No thank you, mate," and close the door. The majority of these are occurring with females, because females don't know how to handle themselves at the door, whereas us men just say, "No thank you, mate, done." The fact that we are in the 21st century still talking about the TV licence is ridiculous. If you're in America, paying to watch TV is an alien concept, and so it should be. Our TV, we buy our TVs, we own our TVs, and what we watch on our TV is up to us, not up to BBC or Capita. It just, the whole thing should be abolished. It should be a public referendum to ask the public to either ban or keep the licence fee. Anyway, guys, that's Joey's Corner. Be sure to like and subscribe to that channel. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.